Hello everyone, welcome back to the class on the lecture 1. So in the first lecture, this one, I will talk about plant cells and tissues. So we begins. So cells is a unit of life. If you're starting from the cells, it's the smallest unit of the organisms. The organism need to have at least one cells. The cells that become an organism, the only one cells, we call it single cell organisms. If the organism with a lot of cells like us human, we call this multicellular organisms. So just one cells is just cells, and multiple cells become tissues, multiple tissues become organs, multiple organs become organ system or root here, and the two organ system right in the plants become the whole organisms, like the whole plants. So we can say that the whole organism, if you chop up like the top part from the ground, is a shoot system, the lower part is the root system, and then you divide it into several organs like leaves, stem, and root, and you divide it further into different plant tissues, and different plant tissues have cells. All right. So all the organisms need to have their own cells. And cells need to be biochemically active. That means it can build up chemical, it can break down chemicals, like it can break down the food and it can make food. It can generate energy, it can produce heat, it can sleep, it can wake up, it can divide, it can reproduce themselves, for example. And how do the plant cells look like? It's just look like rectangle. And if you look closely in this picture, inside the wall, like the cement right here in the gray color, inside is the protoplasm. It contains organelles, for example, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, mitochondria, and chloroplast. We'll learn about that later. So organelles, what are organelles? Organelles are smaller structure inside the cells that has their own function, and they are a living part of the cells. Later, you will have to learn about the non-living part inside the cells. So now let's just focus on the organelles first. So some cells, there are two types of organelles. The organelles with a membrane surrounding, we call it membrane-bound organelles. And some organelles like ribosome, they do not have the membrane, so they are the organelles without membrane. So let's take a look at these cells. You can start with the cell wall. For the pink one, the middle lamella, I will talk about it in this lecture 1, but not in this video. So let's start from the cell wall. Inside the cell wall, as I told you from the previous slides, inside the cell wall is protoplasm composing of cell membrane, organelles, and cytoplasm, the yellow stuff right here. The organelles, for example, the nucleus, of course, because eukaryotic cell has the nucleus. The plants has chloroplast, and all the eukaryotic cell has the mitochondria. And some of endoplasmic reticulum, this one, vacuole, Golgi apparatus, vesicle, and ribosome. All right. Plant cells are eukaryotic cells. What does it mean? Eukaryotic cell is just the cell with the nucleus. From the root of the word, you mean well, and karyon mean nuts or kernel. That's refer to nucleus. And what are organisms that are eukaryotic cells? Those are plants, fungi, and animals. You can see that plants and animals, they are both eukaryotic cells. What about prokaryotic cells? Prokaryotic cells just lack a membrane-bound nucleus, lack a membrane-bound organism. They do not have mitochondria. They do not have chloroplasts or other organelles except ribosome. From the root of the word, pro mean before, or in this case, it mean no. Karyon, of course, refer to nucleus. So prokaryotic cell is just a cell that do not have nucleus. Example of these are bacteria and archaea. All right. This is the picture showing differences between what the structure of eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. Let's imagine eukaryotic cell is more like a house with the smaller rooms inside the house, and each room has its own function, its own properties. For example, the bedroom is for sleeping, the kitchen is for cooking, dining room is for eating. What else? Living room is just for hanging out with friends, watching a TV with families, for example. Eukaryotic cell is something like that. It has organelles that does its own function, and each organelles has their own specialized function. So different activities happen in different organelles. In contrast to the eukaryotic cells, I will refer to eukaryotic cells as a studio house, a studio room in a condominium, for example, that you do all the activity in the same place. So in prokaryotic cell, the DNA is floating around, the ribosome is floating around. There is no distinction, no in the place between DNA synthesis and protein synthesis, not like in the eukaryotic cells. All right. Um, so as I mentioned earlier, plants and animals, they are both eukaryotic cells. And what are the differences? If you take a look at these two pictures, the plant cell has the rigid cell wall that provide the fixed shape and protection and statics. Unlike animals that do not have cell walls and their shape of the cells like more like a round shape and soft, and you can pinch by a very tiny needle and it will come concave. The cells can move around and contain no chloroplast, unlike the plants that have the chloroplast where the photosynthesis takes place. We will learn about photosynthesis in one of our lecture. All right. So for the component of the cells, we will go into the detail in the next video. Please stay tuned. All right. We will see you guys in the next video.